Welcome to the Tao of Pizza, where we feature top logistics leaders, entrepreneurs, and supply chain innovators and share their inspiring stories with a holistic twist.
Mark Hiddleson here, host of the Tao of Pizza podcast, where I talk with top industry innovators in the warehousing, logistics, and supply chain business with a holistic twist. Now, before I introduce today's guest, CJ Nord, this episode is brought to you by Specialized Storage Solutions. Now, look, I've spent decades building warehouse systems that actually work. And after conversations with clients and peers at Manifest in Las Vegas, one thing is clear. Innovation only matters when it shows up on the warehouse floor. At Specialized, we provide industry-leading warehouse storage solutions nationwide. So if you have a facility that needs racking, shelving, carts, conveyors, or mezzanines, we help across the full life cycle: design, engineering, installation, inspections, and repairs, all focused on real throughput, real people, and real constraints. And here's something many folks don't realize, CJ, we offer permit acquisition services. So
Woo-hoo!
yeah, we handle the red tape so you don't have to. We take a holistic...
That's a big deal.
Yes, it is. So if you want to learn more, you can visit our website at specialracks.com or call us at 707-732-3892. And just for podcast listeners, I give my personal email, markhiddleson@aol.com. Yes, I still use AOL. And yes, I'm proud of it. I'm really excited to introduce today's guest. CJ Nord is a respected manufacturing and supply chain leader with more than 3 decades of experience helping organizations navigate complex operational challenges. Known for her sharp supply chain insight and strong ethical leadership, CJ has worked across government and industry to help prevent disruptions and protect public safety. After her own battle with cancer in 2019, she founded Supply Chains for Good, applying supply chain thinking to tackle societal issues and drive meaningful change. She's also the architect behind the innovative There's Cash in That Trash circularity program and passionate advocate for expanding access to supply chain education. And despite all of that, her dog is still not particularly impressed.
Right?
CJ, welcome.
Max is hard to please.
Welcome to the Tao Pizza. Yeah, we have to give a shout out to Max. I understand he's the company mascot. I want to talk about first what was your journey like before you got into supply chain, and how did you get started in the supply chain industry?
Oh, before I got into supply chain, I got in really young. And like so many people of our generation, Mark, I fell into it, right? I picked up a temp job when I was 19 years old, putting boxes on a shelf of a warehouse for a new company called Office Club, which has since been bought out, and I showed up on time. I guess I seemed relatively intelligent, and they offered me an opportunity to become part of their purchasing team, as just like the lowest level assistant that you could imagine, right? And that was my beginnings of getting into supply chain. And I have to say, it just hooked me from the start. And one of the things that I think is really the key for me, and that I see honestly, I see in everybody that loves their career in supply chain, is that I really have always hated to be beaten by a problem.
Yeah.
Hate it, right?
Yeah.
And
I have a word for that called pertinacity. I used to have a plaque behind me that's like a combination of persistent and tenacity.
Pertinacity. I've been called bulldog stubborn.
Yeah.
And I really believe that you only lose when you quit.
Mm.
It's the things that we're seeing not happen in our society that everybody wants to see happen. The thing is that we're just giving up too early. Big changes take a lot of work. They take years. There will be multiple failures.
Yeah.
You got to keep picking yourself up and going back to the job, right?
Yeah, my number one, I have values. It's funny, somebody challenged me to put them on the company wall, and it's like, well, they're big. My thing is the opportunities we face are big, so we dream big. We never insult human capacity with small thinking and playing safe with our gifts. And it's
There you
something I've
go.
lived that. It's like speaking up, right? When you know something, or you can do, or not giving up, not giving up. I love that. One of the people I
Yeah.
used to work with had a picture, and it's famous. I think it's like a frog in the mouth of a big bird or something. The frog's like, never, don't give up.
Right. Or from that the movie Galaxy Quest, right? Never give up, never surrender, right?
Yeah. So that never surrender, and then you find that in the supply chain is like things happen, and things. There's always exceptions. Um,
Look at the stuff we pull off on a daily basis that people don't even realize we're doing.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, the I have a good friend who is part of the union leadership at the Los Angeles port. And during the pandemic, he and I caught up just for a phone call, and he was stumbling over his words. And he said, CJ, forgive me. I've worked for 4 months straight, 16 hours a day, and I'm just tired.
yeah,
And that's what, he's not alone. Most
yeah,
of the dock workers worked 7 days a week, double shifts
yeah.
to clear the pandemic backlog.
Yeah. There were a lot of heroic stories of
Heroes.
I know. uh,
Hmm.
Supply chain, and yeah, keeping things moving. We do a lot of business in the food supply chain, so
Oh,
it was
that's
important.
tough.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
essential with things changing, and people still need to eat. So there was a real sense of urgency to be safe and follow all the protocols. I mean, we were trying to be as good as we possibly like, and even if it was changing daily, we're on phone calls with people changing. Go, what are people doing? To stay running and keep food at the grocery stores, basically.
It's, one of the things that you just said regarding change that I think it's difficult for people when they first enter the field, but then, if they're going to stay, they get their groove with it. But it's never set it and forget it.
Yeah,
Never ever, right? It's really a matter of being able to continually adjust your sails, right?
yeah,
And to become an expert at that. And eventually I think we get really good at foreseeing problems through both a combination of our experience and our education.
yeah.
I think that we are better predictors of risk than most other professions.
And you do have to constantly flexible and adaptable, and it does wear some people out. It's true. It isn't for everybody. It
No,
is
it's
not. I
really
never.
not. It's
Yeah,
really not. If you want to
yeah,
set, you need to go into a different field if you
yeah.
can't really roll with that.
And I will say, I work in a lot of different industries we do, and I'm not going to say anything bad about any of the other, but just the people that run warehouses, logistics, from the ops managers to the general managers to the shipping managers. It's a really, everyone has like a good vibe, like you said, even if it is a bad day. And I've been in other industries where you walk in the
Mhm.
door and you're like, it just kind of sucks.
Yeah, where the energy is really bad here,
Energy. It's the
But
energy. Yeah.
yeah, it actually I was the supply chain leader for the whole supply chain, and so I had the pleasure of working with the warehouse. The warehouse teams worked for me, receiving worked for me, and honestly, that's where I had the most fun. If I needed to take a break from my desk, I would go and chat with the receiving manager and maybe help him put a couple boxes away and just I like that. One of the things that I think is really great about the supply chain field, in particular, if you're in warehousing or manufacturing or manufacturing, is that you get to get up from your desk a lot and, go out to the warehouse, check inventory, look at a quality problem. And that just really keeps it interesting for me,
Yeah.
interesting and exciting. When have you ever had a dull day?
For us, it's not, because if it is that dull, then we take off and have some fun with our toys. If there isn't
Really?
dull, we have a solution for that too. So I want to ask you, I'm really curious about supply chains for good
Mm.
and how you started, the work you're doing, but almost everybody. I mean, I was thinking I've had a lot of different people on this podcast because it's connected to my business, it's sponsored by my business, but it's also the things I'm personally passionate. So we've got an intersection here because you're using the supply chain for good to create value in the chain in so many different ways. And the cash for trash. So I don't know which one I want to talk about first. So help me lead into that. How tell us about supply chain for good and how's it
Mhm.
related to cash for trash?
Well, okay, yeah, I think I can pull that together. So, what I've seen through the years in long before I founded Supply Chains for Good, I was involved in multiple efforts that sought to prevent disruption to supply chains. And like we were talking about before, a lot of that goes on below anybody's radar, right? We're catching buses before they fall on people every day, and nobody even knows it,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Um, I've uh, I've led efforts to protect the right of the owner-operator trucker to continue to dray out of the LA Long Beach port. In the early 2000s, there was an effort it seemed underhanded, which would have overnight removed the ability for those truckers to dray out of the port. That would have removed 15,000 trucks from the drayage system.
And
You
that's
do the math on that, do
amazing.
the math on that,
Yeah.
right? It could not be allowed.
Yeah.
Um, and so I went to the Institute for Supply Management and I went to the California Furniture Manufacturers Association and I said, "Will you back me in as as the face for both organizations against this abrupt change?" Right?
Yeah.
And both did, and we were able to avoid that change happening overnight, right? And so there's another where the state of California tried to change the flammability law for furniture manufactured in California to the flammability code for hospitals with no supporting data,
Yeah.
right? You know us and data,
Yeah.
right? Like we don't just know the data, we know why the data is the data.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And so I participated in the effort against that. Again, there was not a safety concern. It was it just arbitrary. This of the state trying to impose this. I partnered with the Association of Woodworking and Furnishing Suppliers, again, the California Furniture Manufacturers, and we defeated it. And the individual that tried with the state to get that to happen was let go.
Yeah. And you
Yeah.
don't know what the motivation was because some of these I look and we have, in the circularity argument, the laws are constantly changing with racking and especially
Oh, I
California
bet.
and the safety, but it's not making it any safer. So like I was kind of crying in my beer about this at a conference and another competitor walked up and just shared a story. He said, we have pallet racking that we installed 3 years ago. Customer wants to move it to the other end. And this isn't California, it's another state. The customer
Mhm.
wants to move it to another end of the building, and the manufacturer is saying, well, those aren't any good anymore. You have to order new. He goes, they're 3 years old. I mean, the codes couldn't have changed. So I think, I have my theories
Yeah.
on like manufacturer, their goal is to sell more stuff. So if it's not, and probably we do a lot of reuse, recycle. That's why I'm passionate about.
Oh gosh, I mean, I have rarely purchased brand new rack unless it was for a massive project.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
my story.
yeah,
I believe it.
we've
Yeah,
done projects where it had to, there was a specific steel mill run to
yeah.
support it. But we always try and buy a used rack. That just makes sense,
So
right?
it's similar to what you're saying. They raise the standard, and what's the end goal? More regulation, but it doesn't provide additional safety. There's no data
Right.
What's the likelihood that someone's going to be injured because of this is
You know, so if we could just kind of stay on that for a second,
okay.
one
I,
of um, I think what I'm working on my first book, hopefully not the last book, but the
okay.
first book,
Okay.
and it is called "The Heart of Supply Chain: A Book About Power."
Mm,
And by power, I mean our power, Mark, and the power of supply chain that people don't realize. They don't realize how powerful this is. It is past nuclear power. It is the power and the link that is missing from solving the massive problems that we see all around us in the world. Look, supply chain is essentially the science of systems.
hmm
And the world's problems are systemic or systems problems. We are actually the experts in designing systems that work for everybody.
I'm getting chills. Keep going.
Right?
Keep going.
You go after this, I want you to look in the mirror and see the superhero that's looking back at you.
Ah,
We are way more powerful than we realize because also, Mark, we the supply chain people tend to be modest.
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Right? We're not,
Yeah.
it's the sales folks that are
Yeah.
blowing the horn, right? We're the
Yeah.
doers of the world, and we don't stop for a minute and go, "Damn, I really pulled off something incredible," you know?
Yeah.
And but there are multiple examples, although not a huge amount, but multiple examples of people who have used their supply chain expertise for good, right? For the greater good.
Absolutely.
Um, and I'd love to get into those a little bit,
Yeah.
but one of the mission of supply chains for good is the protection of children and family prosperity. And I mean in that order, right? One of the things we know in supply chain is that the sequence matters, right?
Yeah.
So when we, as a society, do our job to protect first, just as we say safety first,
Yeah.
right? Safety first, foremost, and above all else, right? When we get that right, families prosper, businesses prosper. When we fail to protect, we have essentially broken the supply chain. We've weakened the supply chain, and it will break where we have failed to protect. And that may sound all fluffy and unicorns and rainbows, but it's not. I have one practical example after another. We can use retail crime in California as an example. We failed to protect. Businesses closed. Downtown started to become, just places for the unsheltered to pitch their tents.
Yeah.
Businesses failed because we failed to protect.
Yeah.
If
Oh,
you start thinking about it, you will make that connection repeatedly. If a business is running an unsafe operation, it's going to get them,
yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
going to get them in their pocketbook,
Yeah.
right? This is a fundamental principle that I think people need to become more aware of. And through the book, I hope to convey the moral authority that we need to get that done. Because I know that there are many times when the supply chain professional is at the table for a board meeting or a staff meeting, and they make the argument to do the right thing, and they're defeated. I know that that's the case, right?
For reasons more like cost or profit or some other
Short-term vision.
short
Yeah.
term.
And where we'll say, you know what, that's not going to work for all the partners. Right? Or I need to see your factory because I don't know if your factory is safe or not.
Hmm
All right, that's compliance with the California Supply Chain Transparency Act.
yeah.
Um, we need to have the moral authority that a doctor has. All right, so if a doctor is at the board meeting or the staff meeting, and the doctor is asked to do something that doesn't keep with their ethical code, to first do no harm, right? The doctor says, no, it's against my code. That's respected. We need that. They need to respect us with at the same level that they do the medical profession. The supply chain field is also twice as big as the medical profession. Imagine if we all stepped up.
Yeah, there's a lot of power in the supply chain.
There
Uh,
really is. Look, we we frequently use the phrase supply chain and economy interchangeably,
mhm.
right? And look, that's because the supply chain is the operating system for the economy. We're running it,
It really is.
right? We're running the economy.
Yeah. And when it was broken is when everyone started talking about it. When it was working fine for decades.
I know.
Nobody even knew 5, 6 years ago, nobody knew what supply chain was, but
I know. Yeah. The running joke, I always tell the students, the running joke between us is, hey, the pandemic finally showed everybody what supply chain is,
yeah. Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Right? We were all walking around going, hey, everybody finally knows what we do.
Well, even my youngest, and he works for us now, he's 22, but there was a while when just go, like someone asked me a question, he just go, supply chain. Why is this not happening or whatever? It's supply chain. Just like it's the answer to why any problem is happening. It's
Right. And as if that's the entire answer,
right.
right? Like, because one of our strengths is the ability to determine the root cause of a problem,
Yeah.
right? And I
Or
think
see how little tweaks in the system can
yes,
exponentiate into this wild thing you didn't even think.
right? Continuous improvement is small changes,
Yeah, incremental.
small continual changes, right? And I ha from having taken part in multiple efforts where I was interfacing either on behalf of industry or just as a citizen with elected officials. Um, I've understood from those experiences that they need supply chain at the table, but they rarely have it. We are missing from councils, committees, elected positions, and we need to start taking our seat in those roles. I don't anticipate a whole lot of supply chain people having the stomach for what it takes to be elected to public office. I mean,
So I have a lot of intestinal fortitude, but it doesn't
not in that,
not for
not that way,
yeah,
right?
it's weird. I've
But
even felt the calling like a heart call, and it's just like, man, I don't
I've
know.
explored it, and truthfully, Mark, I think that we're more effective outside of that
I think
system,
so.
driving it
Mhm.
like we would our suppliers. Because, if you think about it, all of those tax-funded agencies, they are our supplier of services and infrastructure, and we need to treat them like that.
Yeah,
Um, and to literally guide them and drive them. And we have what it takes
yeah,
to play a significant role in improving society for everybody in a way that would benefit families, benefit children, and businesses all at the same time. The There's cash in that trash program absolutely does that.
yeah.
Nothing
Sure. You
nothing sacrificed in it.
one of the things I loved about your story is you said steel has a robust recycling industry. And then it's funny for us, like recycling is the last resort. I mean, we recycle hundreds of truckloads of steel a year as part of our business, but our
Mhm.
goal, we want to reuse it and repurpose it. And not just because we have big hearts, want to save the planet. There's more profit in the reuse and reselling, but
Good.
you certainly have to you have to like we can't keep everything, if I had
Mhm.
millions and millions, or maybe you could, like I said, I'm saying you can't, but the limiting factor is the space and the money. Do you have millions of dollars to sit on steel that you know you could potentially sell, or you could potentially, so we try to do a balance of recycle and repurposing, but I'm just curious, Eve, wood is one industry where you're, it's because of your experience in the construction industry that you want to do a similar thing with wood, where there like
Yeah.
right now there's an outlet for steel because there's people who processes it, you can send it. But what now you're creating that for other
For wood.
for
Yeah.
yeah.
So, and just to clarify, my experiences in wood products manufacturing and furniture manufacturing.
Okay.
Most of my 30 years in running supply chains for manufacturing has been in that sector. So when I was trying to, I'm a little weirdo. It's going to totally come out in this podcast. So,
Awesome.
right, weirdos unite. Um, so
Or I would
I
call it a nerd. I like to nerd out on certain.
Nerd. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, for sure. Listen, Nord's a nerd.
Yeah.
I am a nerd. And all my friends are nerds
Yeah.
and the power of the nerd.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Because we're gonna
Right.
dig in there, take the extra time because I'm excited. I'm curious. I'm curious about stuff and learning
So
more.
it's terrific that you have so much familiarity with the steel, with steel in general. And we all, I think, have to thank our parents for so much. But my father was a steel worker. And he infused in me an early love of manufacturing, a very early love of manufacturing. And I was raised with knowledge about steel and metals in general. And I clearly remember him saying, um, oh, sis, steel's all recycled. People drop off old bikes, anything, old cars, it all goes right back into the steel mill, right? And when you're told something like that when you're 4 or 5 years old, right? You think about it, right? I'm going to be 59 next week. You've been thinking about these things for a long time, and when you gather your experience, it all starts to come together into ways that solutions can form. And so one of the so I was walking around my little house thinking about how can I help supply chain save the world, and what's taking so long to form this circular supply chain, right? What's taking so long?
Yeah.
It's just a supply chain. What are we doing wrong,
Yeah.
right? This should not take that long.
Right.
Um, and it didn't appear to me that it was coming together at all. You see efforts here and there, but it's not coming together, right? Like, and then I started to realize, well, what the working model is steel and metals. And that industry has recycled their waste for centuries. And so the whole supply chain to do that, from the scrap metal yard to the hardworking parent with God knows how many jobs that picks up the old barbecue in front of your house,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
The supply chain is built and it flows because every single partner makes a little money along the way. So there's cash in that trash is a message to drive the effort for circularity on profit. Figure out profitability, how every player is going to make a profit at this. And then you have a winning formula. So profit, not penalties, trade, not taxes, right?
Absolutely.
That's what we have to build.
Yeah.
And look, we built bigger things, Mark. We built the supply chain that's in place right now.
Absolutely.
I've been doing this since the early 90s. It's literally our work
Yeah.
that built the linear supply chain that takes, makes, and disposes of everything. What we have to do is remove that disposal step and figure out how to make a profit out of all of the waste that our industries generate. Um, and when I to get myself to figuring out how to do this, and this is where I totally cop up to being a weirdo. Um, I imagined myself as the supply chain manager for planet Earth,
Okay.
and that Earth was my factory to protect.
That's a good place to start.
And it actually releases your thinking.
Yeah.
It's like I removed a barrier in my thinking when I did that. Later, I realized that it was actually the application of one of Eisenhower's principles. So I'm a weirdo, but so is Eisenhower, so that's all right.
For Buckminster Fuller, yeah, of how we think about. I didn't like the fact that I'm a Bucky Fuller fan, but he used the spaceship metaphor. You know, we're not passengers on spaceship Earth, we're crew.
Ah,
And I don't like that he called Earth a spaceship because it's so much more than that. But it's a good
no, but you're right. We're the crew,
we are
you
the
know.
crew, we're not the passengers. So I love that, and I love ecolo. So I published the book in July, and there's one chapter on economics, and it's put the eco back in economics. I mean, I think it goes with starting where you're starting, where it's like it's not like the earth that they'll say, well, there's these three pillars of sustainability and the ecosystem is one of them. It's like, no, the whole thing is the ecosystem.
I know,
You're including
you
it's
know,
a
right?
pillar. It's like, no, it isn't. It's the whole thing. And so
They,
like, it's
you
just like
know,
thinking. It's like, okay,
yes, it's a
stool
way
is
of
three
thinking.
legs and it's one leg of the stool. It's like, no, it's everything that the whole stool is made up of. Even the fact that we call it a stool is part of the.
One of the things that I explain to the high school students when I have the pleasure of going in the classroom is that supply chain is the interconnectivity of all things.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a volcano erupt in Iceland. Remember that? And it disrupts the global supply chain.
Oh, wow.
Nothing is disconnected. It
Yeah,
is all one single system, and we really have to look at it that way.
we really do. Yeah,
But supply chain people know that. We know that in our gut,
we do. Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm really interested. And so what I think too is what you're talking about making it profitable. And I learned this in college in economics. We don't really, things aren't costed correctly because we haven't added the cost of getting rid of something. Like if you say, here's this what's cost to make because this is what the minerals it took to get out of the ground or the labor or whatever. But it's
Mhm.
like, what about when that product causes pollution? What's the
Oh
cost?
boy, we could really talk about that all day.
So how do you adjust
Um,
the cost? And people are like, well, it has to be profitable. It's like, well, for what?
what's the real cost?
What's the cost?
What's the
The
real
whole
cost?
life cycle of and for me,
Mhm.
the ones I've seen because I'm in supply chain that drive me crazy that I think there must be a solution is packaging. Like there has to be. I mean, they do recycle corrugated. There are programs you can bale it, you can do all kinds of things, but there has to be something for reuse in corrugated. You know, with like the same kind of pickup system. You're like, what's the supply chain? What do you do with all? Because now Amazon everyone has 20 or not everyone, but there's, drive down the neighborhood and there's usually boxes in front of people's house of just
Mhm.
so to me that model that's a cost that's going to be associated with. I mean, I don't know. I don't have the answer.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that I think that there are solutions for all of this. You had pointed out that the most economical solution is just to reuse it,
Yeah.
and in our when our parents were first setting up their home and when our grandparents ran their homes, everything was reused. If it had a purpose, and one of the things I remember that you would get scolded about is you didn't use it up.
Right. Yeah.
We don't use things up,
Yeah.
right? We
Yeah.
we toss them when there's still plenty of good
Yeah.
left in them.
Brown paper
So
bag. I mean, we were using like my brown paper bag used to be my suitcase. Like I would get the best brown paper bag, and that's what I put
yeah,
clothes in when I went to visit friends. So it's like my kids all have Samsonites, but I don't know. I was younger. I've always and my grandfather actually taught me how to fold the paper bags. I was young. I was probably 6 or 7, and just kind of crumple it, and they do kind of fold themselves. But if you don't do it, the edges get messed up. And he's like, no, if you do that then you can't reuse them. And they always reused it for all kinds of stuff, the trash or
oh, all kinds. Yeah, yeah. There's very little trash. You'd mentioned packaging.
yeah.
I
Like,
I believe that the at the core of our problem for packaging single-use plastics in particular
mhm.
is that we have liquefied so many things that don't really have to be liquefied.
Mhm.
Now you know what a nerd I am, right?
Yeah,
I
because
actually
you're
like,
going back to like the root of the problem is not the packaging, it's how we're distributing it. So you mean,
right. It's the, if you think about, let's just think about how many jugs, plastic jugs of Tide
right?
are sold, transported, taking up warehouse space, fold that out all
Yeah,
the way through the supply chain, right? The excess that comes from having that liquefied.
because it used to be in
Um,
a powder in a box.
like your like mom and dad did, like
Yeah,
grandma and grandpa did, right?
that way.
Um, and one of the really neato, and that works really well, innovations that has come through recently, and I don't think we can really call it an innovation because I'm pretty sure we're just going back to the old ways.
Mhm.
Is they've made detergent sheets. So they're as big as like a dryer sheet,
Uh-huh.
right? And you just take those and you put them in the seventh generation is one of the companies that makes them. But the box, the cardboard box that comes in is as big as a box of dryer sheets, and it has as many loads in it as the big bottle of Tide,
Wow. Yeah. And
right?
nobody's using those big bottles to like save rainwater or do their dishes or carry water to, you know what I mean? That's that
For
really
the most part, they're hopefully going into the recycle bin, you
right.
know. But another example. So there's low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, because that's a petroleum-based product, right? To where the cardboard box is recycled.
And it's also, look at the shelf space. Think
Yeah.
about the cost of transportation. We talk about cost. Oh, wouldn't it be fun to run the transportation cost for bottles of Tide compared to the cost of moving those little boxes of
Wow.
dryers,
Then you
right?
differentiate
Just run the
yeah.
just the fuel savings, just the diesel savings,
Yeah.
right? And then the space in the warehouse, right? These solutions they're right there for us, but it will not happen without supply chain leadership.
So how are some ways? So all my friends are supply chain. Anyone who listens
Me
to
too,
this,
right? I have very few friends
what
that are not in supply chain.
what do we do? Where do we meet up? How are the things? How do we learn more about the cash for trash? Because and we don't do a lot in the lumber industry, but I mean I do have friends in the hardwood company, so I'm interested in that. That I'd just like to introduce them to your program or like
You
I
know,
want to start talking about how do people really um roll up their sleeves, from here on. Now that we know about CJ Nord and supply chains for good, and what should we start doing?
you know, I just wanted to say that everybody can reach out to me with what problem do you want to solve? What are you passionate about? What pisses you off?
Those are the good
Right?
ones. It should piss
That's
you
where to
off.
start. That's where to start,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I started with wood waste because it's been bugging me for decades,
yeah,
right? I've been trying to figure this out for decades.
yeah.
Start with what gets your goat,
I like that.
right?
I like.
And I will work with you. And there are three aspects of my business. There's one, forming the circular supply chain based on profitability. The other is advancing beginners level supply chain education. There's no reason why it shouldn't be taught in every high school in America.
Mhm. I love that.
Gosh darn it.
Yeah,
Really. It's
yeah,
one of the largest fields in the nation, and it is
yeah.
rarely taught in the high school. And then the other is pro bono advocacy work. I work with communities. Next week, I will be at the Capitol in Sacramento lobbying for bioenergy. Um, whatever you want to achieve, I'm here for you, and we'll walk through it together. And my website's supplychainsforgood.org. Easy to reach me.
We will have that on our show notes.
Great.
I'll make sure that we'll have your LinkedIn profile. We'll have a link to that. And the cache, I noticed that the cache for trash is kind of on the homepage, kind of in the middle at the bottom, so people can learn more about it there. Um,
But so let me talk about the program.
there's something new. Share what's the newest thing that you're working on,
Oh, well,
or
okay,
whatever.
so
What do you want to get? We have time. We have time, but
okay, so
there's a
the
lot.
quickly the solving the wood waste problem, the some of the problems that our society is creating that we need to fix is one, we are trying to create the circular supply chain with motivating it on taxes, penalties, and grants. Wrong way. We are trying to build the circular supply chain one company at a time. That's flat out foolish, right? We need to drive it on profit and trade, and we need to shift whole industries together,
Yeah, because you
right?
need to create an ecosystem. That's the word. Well,
Yes.
and I it's an ecosystem of
Yeah, yeah.
operators and end users. Really, it's and curate, or what are really those parts of that?
Relationships, those partners, right?
Yeah.
And so again, kind of walking around thinking, okay, if I'm the supply chain manager for Earth, how do I do that? And it occurred to me that the partnership that you need to form is with the trade associations.
Mm,
That's what they're there for.
yeah.
They're there to protect the industry. This protects the industry. And
Yeah.
so I partnered with, in July of 2024, I partnered with the Association of Woodworking and Furnishing Suppliers. And their director, a wonderful, good-hearted man named Angelo, and I have known each other for I think about 20 years. And I went up to him and I said, Angelo, these disposal fees, they're killing the woodworkers. We got to find a solution here, man. It's getting worse every year. Um, and he said, yeah, Siege, okay, yeah, we'll partner with you. They paid me a very small stipend for a year of work and gave me access to one of their employees who partnered with me in trying to figure this out, a booth at their show. They did webinars and things like that. And at first we thought, what can you do with wood waste? And you have to solve the composite wood waste problem, not the pure wood waste.
Mm,
It's the IKEA furniture with laminates. That's the problem to solve, right? Because all of that is landfilled. All of that you have to pay to dispose of, right?
because there's no way
Um,
to recycle, reuse the composites.
it does, there's no, the supply chain's not built
Yeah.
to do
Oh,
it,
so there's a
right?
way, but it's not there. We're just not there. We don't have the
We haven't built the supply chain, but it's also there's a way, but it's very early stages. So about 2 months into the project, we realized that we could actually use the wood waste to generate electricity to run the factory.
Mm, the
So
actual factory that's making it. You mean
how about that?
that is now that's
The
circular.
wood waste that they generate can be pumped right back into made into electricity to run the factory. And there's no, we were talking earlier, use it up, right?
Yeah.
Use it up. At
Mm,
the end of that process, which is called biomass, or often referred to as bioenergy, at the end of that process, you have a couple of byproducts that are actually worth a lot of money.
oh,
And so, I once I realized that that was doable, several of the woodworkers who were kind enough to partner with me said, well, yeah, CJ, everybody knows you can do that, but the state would never let you. Right.
wow.
Okay. Well, so why? And can I change that? Right. It turned out that actually the state of California has passed a couple of laws to encourage bioenergy.
Mm,
And it was really comical. I spoke with a young engineer who was in charge of the advancing of bioenergy with CARB, the California Air Resources Board. And young man, easily young enough to be my son. And he said, we'd really like you to do this. How come you're not? And I said, we didn't think you'd let us.
Nice.
We didn't think you'd let us.
The Air Resources Board turned out to be an ally in that case.
It turned the actually the Air Resources Board is undergoing the permitting for the systems. There's so bioenergy, the biomass reactors process the feedstock. It used to be called waste. Now it's really fuel, right? They process the feedstock through a process called pyrolysis, which is heating in the absence of air. And it's like your oven on a self-cleaning cycle. The systems are locked down, completely enclosed. They have very specialized filters on the inside of it. They don't off gas. There's no air quality issues from these systems at all. Over the last really short period of time, less than 10 years, there's been a group of really innovative manufacturers of these systems that have developed smaller modular systems. They used to be huge waste energy plants that cost $50 million, right? Well, you can't, there's no ROI like that.
Right.
I've been able to find systems that are as little as $200,000 to really an average for a mid-sized manufacturer comes in close to $2 million.
Uh,
When that system goes in, they're offsetting, or I should say, removing their electricity bill and their waste disposal bill. And I'm seeing at the most a 3-year return on investment, usually closer to a year and a half to two.
which is what
Yeah.
CFOs want, right? That 18 to 20.
That's, look, they'd say yes every time if it was a 1-year ROI, but
Right.
there's nothing wrong with a 2-year ROI when it makes you energy independent. The other reason, when you find that you really have a solution, you really solve the root cause of a problem, one of the things that we see is that you see a domino effect of other problems that you solve. You know
Yeah.
how that happens, right? If you misdiagnose the root cause, the opposite is true.
There's problems you had no idea are going to be
You cause a
problems.
bunch of
Yeah.
problems. You cause a bunch of problems, right?
Yeah.
So this solution of bioenergy, it like with a mid-sized manufacturer that's putting a system in Orange County, when their system goes in, they'll take 800 truck trips off the road a year, hauling wood waste.
Because that's the cost of the disposal. There is a real cost there of
There's a
trucking.
real cost.
So
There's
so
no
this
use for it.
it's staying on the property. It basically can go on a conveyor belt right to the plant that
Right,
generates energy.
right. Right. It's interesting. One of the high school kids that I work, high school kids are great. They challenge you, and I love that.
Yeah.
One of the kids, when I was explaining the program at a high school in Newport Beach, she said, "Yeah, but what you're doing doesn't prevent trees from being cut down." And I said, "Well, does it need to?" Actually, and then I started giving it more thought, and actually, we've returned wood back to its original use for humankind. And
It,
if that isn't circular, I don't know what is.
it is. Yeah.
Right? One of the incorrect ways of thinking about how to form the circular supply chain is that the item, whatever that waste commodity is, has to be returned to its original form. We can actually convert a lot of things into energy, and our nation desperately needs energy. By 2030, the U.S. Department of Energy anticipates 100% more power outages.
Oh, I can see that. Yeah. We had a
Yeah.
client that had to run generators for cold storage for months because of power. And they have, luckily for them, they have a solar roof, but it wasn't enough.
No, usually these energy systems require a combination of things, but the biomass systems made correctly can really pump out a lot of power.
And
Um,
then what about the opportunity for people who don't have it to contribute to someone else's plan? I mean, is that ecosystem in place?
I love how
But
you think. So again, let's think again of the metal supply
right,
chain, right?
right.
So the the steel mill is the upstream driver of all of that waste, right? The steel mill is what's drawing it up, right? The woodworking factory is going to be the steel mill. That's the draw to take the waste up through upstream because it's creating so much value. It's going to create energy. It's going to create a synthetic biogas. It's going to create biochar, which is so valuable that it's been nicknamed black gold. My friend, you may remember in the last century that was crude oil called
Yeah,
black
but
gold.
there's a new black gold.
There's a new black gold. There's a new black gold, and it's biochar, right? So, and on the heels of this, biochar can be made into highly valuable advanced materials like graphene and hydrogen. We can make fuel grade hydrogen, right? So there is cash in that trash, isn't there?
Yeah.
So because we have now defined how you can make a profit out of it with a good ROI, um, the factory will be what draws the broken consumer furniture up through the recycling system. And so, you know how people put their old
Yeah.
barbecue out on the sidewalk.
Now you
I
can get dresser drawer or IKEA.
Right. I envision a day when that old dresser has the same value as the old barbecue, and probably the same hardworking person with multiple jobs is going to be the one that picks it up and takes the barbecue to the scrap steel and then takes the dresser to the scrap wood yard that chops it up and feeds it to the woodworking factory to make power out of, or maybe somebody else decides to invest in a biomass system to make power out of it. I've seen a really cool model where a biomass reactor goes into abandoned gas stations and powers EVs. And
Um,
so that is literal, they're literally collecting trash to charge EVs.
yeah, and there's probably enough of that trash is already ending up at landfills.
Oh, my friend, in California, last year in landfills, we disposed of 40 million tons.
And so
There's plenty.
that's the play. I mean, you can capture it there now before people change their habit. I mean, it's a habit change to not,
I think thinking through the supply chain that's in place right now, I think that the key player for routing what is going into the landfills is going to be the smaller waste haulers that specialize in yard waste and wood waste. There's a whole group of companies that are smaller companies, and we're just gonna, go up to, so and so's waste hauling and say, you know what, I can get rid of your tipping fees and shorten your trip by you just taking the wood waste over here. Why would you not say yes to that?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
It increases everybody's profitability.
yeah.
Um, if it's okay, I'll just cover the one. I know we're kind of running
We
long, but
are, and I do want to talk about the project.
so
Yeah.
this is only going to make sense to the people that you and I are trying to reach. Okay.
Okay.
Um, we have all kinds of disruptions in our supply chain that are predictable, that we should see coming, but we don't, right? But we don't see them coming. Nobody does anything about it to prevent disruptions, and you can see them coming a mile away, right? So, been giving some thought to that. Our nation has the governing body, the Fed, that oversees our financial systems.
Mhm.
I firmly believe that we need a Fed for the supply chain, a governing body of smart people like you and me who will oversee our nation's supply chain and make the adjustments that are necessary to make sure that we do not continue to have disruptions that lead to recessions. Now, the next step in that is, well, what would that board need? They would need a global MRP system. So, for those that are listening that are not familiar with what that acronym is, MRP is Material Requirements Planning, and it was really the inception of MRP at IBM in the 1980s that is the beginning of how supply chain is today. That is when everything became interconnected, right? We need, and it's not that hard to put together, a global supply chain, a global MRP for the supply chain that oversees the what's coming in on the ocean, right? And if you think about the data that we need for that, it's there.
Is there?
It's
That's
there. It's in the harmonized tariff schedule.
yeah.
The data points that we need are there. We could put together a global MRP. Um, so one of the things that has been, I mean, just to quote the hokey old song, "The wind beneath my wings" has been the partnerships with universities.
Mm.
And the partnership with the USC Viterbi School of Systems Engineering has just been everything to me. The professor there, a guy who is my absolute hero named Ted Maishiba, reached out to me when my program was first launched, and he goes, "Hey, you got a pretty good idea here. You want some help with that?"
You're like, absolutely.
As low key as you can imagine.
Yeah.
So he's been so I have teams of capstone students that partner on every single one of my projects, and that's just been huge. So I went to TED and also a professor with the University of Mary Baylor in the Houston area, a great guy named Dr. Jim King, and said, what about this as a student project, and how about having the two universities work together on it? And both, thank God, said yes. And I, we had talked about obtaining customs data information to be able to model that, but I felt strongly that California's headed for a massive fuel crisis, and I felt like we needed to do that modeling first. So California, we're really in trouble. And you know very well that when you cannot prevent an out of stock, the next thing that you do is you get your red flag and you wave it as high as you can so everybody can duck because it's coming, right? Because the problem is coming and you can't prevent it. So then your next obligation is to inform everybody so they know that problem is coming, right? If you can't stop the hurricane,
You
tell
go.
everybody get below, right? So what we're doing now is we are modeling California fuel supply, gasoline and diesel, using the 2025 sales of gasoline and diesel in California and the 2025 production, and then what production and distribution is in 2026, because we have two refineries that the state has lost. So we've lost supply.
Mhm.
We have also lost over 400 gas stations just as of this July or this January. Sorry, so we have a deficit in supply and we've lost a whole chunk of our distribution system in primarily in rural communities. That and this, I feel like this comes from having people in elected offices trying to form solutions but not knowing how, right? They not to be overly critical, but they couldn't find the root cause of a problem with two hands and a flashlight.
Yeah. It's
So their
the
solutions suck, you know?
yeah, the people that have spent their life in business solving problems. I mean, day to day to day. I mean,
Day to day, we do it
I'm
every damn day, right?
that own companies, or I go like I was on a lunch yesterday. There were five or six of us. I mean, there were some fires put out in those meetings. I mean, I usually don't have my cell phone in a meeting, but yesterday was one of those things where we all knew. It's like, guys, if something comes up, and some of us in the warehouse, we were touring it. The people giving us a tour, they had to stop and handle an exception, like to keep the ball rolling. And I don't until you live that. I mean, there's no way to learn that. without wood?
No, you can educate for it, and
Yeah,
I firmly believe the need for continuing education, lifelong learning, but that just is the foundation that you need when you go out there and start doing it. And then when you start doing it, you understand the complexity as well as the simplicity of
yeah.
it,
And to
right?
find the right motivation. But I love so much about what you said. We're gonna have to do a round two
Oh,
because
let's,
we're
and
already.
let's,
But I want to
yeah,
recap. It's to go to the Supply Chain for Good website, and we'll have a link to it. It's connect with CJ Nord on LinkedIn,
please do.
and specifically in the furniture manufacturing industry, if there's opportunities, and I know
Anything with furniture, woodworking,
like cabinet shop too, like big cabinet.
anything made of any type of wood.
Yeah,
Like for example, the disposal of wood waste is a massive problem.
yeah.
It's hitting everybody that makes stuff out of wood. You can ask companies like Chet Pallets. The area that they're in recently said, you know what, we're not going to accept your wood waste anymore.
Mm.
Oops.
I know a couple huge pallet guys. Yeah, so now you're starting to get my juice flowing.
Yeah,
Who else?
pallet guys, fences, construction waste.
Yeah, construction. I was going to ask you because that could be a
Yeah,
good one. And
you definitely can.
there's a lot of capacity. So this is tied to like last mile deliveries because there's got to be a lot of backhaul opportunities for stuff like this to where the freight
Oh, good point.
trucks are moving empty, and if there's that much stuff that has to be moved, it's just a way of packaging it, loading it.
Oh, that's all right. You can, that's doable.
But I mean, it
Uh,
just adds another stop. It's another for trucking companies instead of hauling empty trucks. If there's this other opportunity or source, that's how I think about it. That's what people
yeah.
do.
Well, so that's what starts to happen
Yeah.
when you have, in our conversation, we're actually two of the positions in the supply chain, right? I run supply chain, but all the way through, I've been a procurement person, right? You have your strength in distribution, warehousing, and logistics, right? And when you put all of us at a table together, I firmly believe there isn't a problem we can't solve.
Yeah. So I want to be at some of those tables. I want to get involved in the government stuff. So we'll have a
Please do.
conversation afterwards, but I want to be the first to thank you so much. I was so excited. Oh, and I want to give a shout out to DC, and I might mispronounce her name, but Sefragola. I know her only from LinkedIn. She's written a book recently, and she saw your presentation at an event, and she posted about it
Yeah.
on LinkedIn. And then I read that, and that's why I reached out to you. So I wanted to give her.
Oh, it was
I don't know. Do you know DC?
I know her.
Yeah.
She's one of the friends that I made through LinkedIn, and we met for the first time after knowing each other for maybe 3 years. And like calls, and I, love pictures of her kid and all
Yeah.
the rest of that. But she's really one of the supply chain professionals out there that knows in her heart that supply chain can save the world. And that's the message. Supply chain can save the world, and we are the superheroes to get it done.
So I'm going to send her a LinkedIn message and invite her.
Oh,
I
do.
wanted to invite on the podcast, and it's funny. Some people, and then I want to reach out, and you were just we intimately just connected. So I'm definitely, uh, uh, I'm definitely going to reach out to DC because I've been wanting to interview her. She's really bright. She's teaching a class on LinkedIn about the
She's a
supply chain,
rocket.
and I've seen her on other podcasts. So um, I hope she
You
says
know,
yes. I'm going to tell her CJ said you.
she's one of the hardest working supply chain people out there too.
Yeah.
She works so hard, and I could just go on and on about how impressed I am with her. And she's a young woman, and I think that she's going to continue to rise all the way through her life. There's also Steve Robinson, the founder of the Supply Chain Project. He's taking the retail returns that are ending up in the landfill and routing them to nonprofits.
Okay, I've had a return. Dennis Hong from Pattern is actually a return company. They focus on because returns are killing people because the cost of return something is like 10 times more than when it goes out when it goes
And we're
out,
seeing that.
I'd be receiving it, putting it back in inventory, cleaning it, giving the credit to the customer, like all this stuff. And so their solution, they buy returns. So instead of somebody doing it in-house and bringing it, they're in the high-end apparel business and they have agreements.
Mhm.
And it's like all this is nuanced too, because high-end retailers don't want their stuff being sold at a discount.
I
At the same
know.
time, their returns are caused. So they've created these agreements that kind of work, a world that works for everybody, like you're saying, because people can get
Yeah,
stuff
we can figure it out.
at a lower cost. Yeah.
The, but children are going without shoes and we're throwing them away. And last year, my friend, we threw away, I'm glad you're sitting down, 9.5 million pounds of retail returns
Yeah.
in the landfills.
Yeah.
Kids are cold. We're throwing away coats.
Yeah. And it's a
Gotta stop that.
distribution problem. Like you said, it's not a supply
It's just
problem.
we just have to build the supply chain,
Yeah.
and it's just a supply chain,
Yeah.
right?
You know,
Yeah.
we're long, but I wanted to ask you one more question. This is,
Sure.
I looked at the list of the things you volunteer for, and how does that drive? Like, how does that work? How are you able to look at it? It's like, oh my gosh, she's doing all this stuff, but I mean, just share how that works for you. We talked a little bit before that I like going and speaking to classes on supply chain. There's a few local
Love
high
that.
schools that are teaching supply chain. I really get energized by that. But
Mhm.
I felt like I was doing a lot of volunteer work. I looked at yours. And it's just like that's why you shouldn't compare yourself to other people because they can be humbled sometimes. But just share a little bit about how volunteerism is helping you achieve what you want to achieve.
It was volunteering that got me here.
Yeah.
And I used to friends that help kids find their career path have been inviting me into the classroom long before I established Supply Chains for Good. And they said, Siege, can you come in, talk to the kids about supply chain and manufacturing? And I love both, love them. And I'd get the kids all excited about it, and they'd go, "Where can we learn more, Ms. Nord?" And I'd be like, "I got nothing for you."
Nothing there.
And it was my being in front of the kids that volunteering that helped me find the path to creating Supply Chains for Good and establishing a partnership with V-Care Academy, who is my provider of high school level supply chain curriculum. And I tried with some of the more well-established, well-known supply chain organizations in the United States to establish a beginner's level supply chain education, but it's got to be cheap.
Right.
And it has to be written for a high school kid. It's got to be entertaining,
Yeah.
all of those things, right? And I got strung along for really about 2 years in trying to, solve this problem of the beginner's level supply chain education. And I went to the founder of V-Care Academy, Zishan, and said, "We're missing the kids. We're not teaching the beginner, and the kids are missing out." And within 10 minutes, he said, "Yes, we'll do this together. Let's spend 10 years on it."
Nice. Nice.
And
Yeah.
so now it's taught in 5 Orange County school districts. And in August, we start at the largest ROP center in the state.
Nice.
It's
Congratulations.
taken a lot to get here.
Well, CJ, I want to be the first to thank you so much for coming, sharing
Thank
your
you too,
energy
Mark.
and your ideas. Yeah.
Oh, bless your heart. You got to be called crazy for a long time before people understand that it is possible.
Yeah. I love it. I love it.
Thanks for listening to the Tao of Pizza podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.